Hello again, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Journey Through Sports and Life. My name is Scott Murray, alongside
Marjorie Herrera-Lewis.
Marnie Schneider.
And bring our audience up to date, who you might be and where you came from, and about the great history that you have in sports.
Well, I don't want to reveal our guest today, but when I was covering the Dallas Cowboys, he was on the team.
Yes, indeed.
So I covered the Dallas Cowboys for a beat for a number of years, and now currently I'm an author. I have When the Men Were Gone out on the market.
And, tell us about that book. That's really special.
It's a novel based on a true story of a woman who coached football in Brownwood, Texas during World War II. Her name was Tylene Wilson, and she's actually been recognized now in the Brown County Museum of History.
Awesome. Probably thanks to you. So, and hopefully that's going to be a movie someday. I hope, because it's a great book.
It's actually in the works.
That's
so
fantastic.
I'll keep you posted.
Marnie, take it away.
All right. Well, I grew up in Philadelphia, and my grandfather owned a professional football team in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Any chance it was called the Eagles?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, absolutely. And my mom, Susan Toe Spencer, ran the team for my grandfather, and she is the first and only female to ever hold the position of general manager, legal counsel, and vice president of a professional football team. So
and I've got to interrupt. When you talk about sports, you have no idea. Here's an author. Here's yet another author. Tell them about what you've just done of recent.
Yeah, so I've been working on a series of children's books called Football Freddy. Freddy is basically me, and Fumble the Dog, Game Day in the USA. And each book takes us, the reader, on a wonderful historical tour through different football cities that host great football teams. So I'm really excited and proud of that. So we're
Great
9
series.
books in and more to go. We're going to get to 32 very soon.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of rock star co-hosts alongside here for Journey Through Sports and Life. My life in sports started when I was just out of school. I was for 30 years. I was very honored to be a multi-EMMY Award-winning sports anchor and sports director. I started off in Washington, D.C., and then more recently, the last 40 years, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and now have a television production company with my son called Murray Media World. So we still are very involved in the sports world. So that's who we are, and who is our special guest, we will tell you when we come back. Welcome back once again, Scott, Marnie, and Marge, and we're here with our latest edition of Journey Through Sports and Life, and our special guest, I'm going to tell you about him right now. The name is Jim Jeffcoat. Sound familiar, Cowboys fans? That's right. He was a 3-year starter at Arizona State University. And then in 1983, that's right, almost 4 decades ago, he was the Dallas Cowboys' first-round draft pick in the NFL draft. The following year, he replaced the great Harvey Martin at the right defensive end position. Jim maintained a high level of play through the Cowboys' difficult years of the late 80s. His best season came in 1989 when he finished with a career-high 100 tackles. A career-high 42 quarterback pressures, team-leading 11.5 sacks, and a career-high 3 fumble recoveries. That's right, a busy man defensively. During the 1992 season, his role was reduced to a situational pass rusher after Tony Tolbert took over the left defensive end position, and the team traded for Charles Haley to make him the right defensive end. They were getting all kinds of new players. It was under the new regime and what have you. He had played for Coach Landry and now was with Jimmy Johnson. So bringing in newer players, well, with fewer opportunities, what did he do? He managed to lead the team with 10.5 sacks. That's right. This is the kind of guy we're talking about. He was not to be denied. And that was, of course, towards that Super Bowl winning Pasadena Super Bowl back in Super Bowl 27, the first of the 3 in the 4 years that the Cowboys won. And, of course, the first of 2 Super Bowl rings that Jim would earn. And following the 1994 season, having never missed a game with the Cowboys. How about that? Never missed a football game. He left for Buffalo via free agency for his final 2 years in the pros with the Buffalo Bills. And after his retirement, he spent 7 seasons with the Cowboys. He was their defensive ends assistant coach. And one of the sack leaders in the history of the National Football League is right there at the other end of the table. Ladies and gentlemen, number 77, Jim Jeffcoat. Hello,
Pleasure.
how you doing?
Pleasure to be here with you. Pleasure.
Great to have you come out here
thank
and
you. Thank you
visit
very
with us.
much.
This is great.
Well, I
Yes.
tell you what. You want to take it away? Marnie, you want to start?
I like how Marjorie does it.
Well, I tell you what.
Go for it.
Go for it. I was going to say you could start because he grew up just about an hour from
Yes.
the town of
Hour and
Philadelphia,
15
PA,
minutes,
or from
Yes.
New York and then
All right.
close to PA.
So then seeing, obviously the Philadelphia team and the New York teams, how did that inspire you to want to become a football player, or what was your inspiration to pick up the ball?
Well, my inspiration, to be honest with you, was to get a free education. And obviously when you have the opportunity to perform at a level that somebody's going to offer you a scholarship and they're going to pay for it. That was my inspiration.
Yeah.
And to have an opportunity to better myself.
So tell us a little bit about when you were growing up. How were you even introduced to football, and what other sports did you play? And when did you know you were going to be pretty good at it?
Well, I started playing football as a freshman in high school, and I wasn't very good. That's to be honest with you.
What position did they have you playing?
I played every position, but I wasn't very good. I played outside linebacker. I played running back. I played tight end, anywhere they needed me. And I wasn't very good, but I was fortunate enough, my parents, especially my mother, she understood football. And she's the one who taught me how to play football.
I love that.
Yeah,
mean,
it's
my
really
mom-
Wow.
Oftentimes the moms are the ones, deciding what sports their children are going to play.
Yes.
So if you have a mother that loves football, you
Yes.
were playing football.
So how did she
Well-
teach you? Can you tell us something you remember very
Yeah, I can remember exactly like it was yesterday. My first practice, I was playing outside linebacker, and this guy, I had a growth spurt from the 8th grade. I was 5'6" going into the 8th grade.
Oh.
I was 6'2" going into the 9th grade as a freshman. And
How much did you weigh? 6'2" in ninth grade.
I weighed about 160 pounds.
Wow, that's
And I
unbelievable.
was 130 at 5'6". So
Wow.
I had a growth spurt. And what had happened is that my mother wanted to keep me, she was a teacher, and she wanted to keep me active. So she would come and watch practice, and I wasn't very good. So she let me know it. She let me know.
Wow.
So when I got home to getting ready for dinner, she had put this burlap bag full of potatoes in the backyard. And she says, today I'm going to teach you how to play football. And you're going to learn how to tackle first. And she made me tackle it for hours. And she says, you tackle until I get tired. I'm like, and back then, you couldn't do that. Wasn't child abuse. That was just the parents directing you. And I learned to tackle. I learned to tackle properly. I learned to use the proper forms and everything. And she would always watch my games and critique them. She even critiqued me as an NFL player.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Wow, that's-
my
Is
dad
she still
would just
living?
say, yes.
Is she really?
She's in New Jersey. She still lives in New
Now,
Jersey.
she's got to be awfully
Wow.
proud of your incredible.
Yes, but my dad would just shake his head and he couldn't believe it. But that was the way she was, and she was wanted me to whatever I did to be successful at it, and I appreciate that.
Oh, Jimmy,
So if
that's
you see
really-
a burlap bag full of potatoes now, do you get hives?
I get a little nervous.
but you got it.
Yeah.
I
Don't worry,
think
that
I
burlap
might- I
bag,
think I might.
it's got nothing on you.
He's not allowed to go into Walmart or Albertsons or
Yeah.
Kmart.
But she was obviously one of my biggest rooters. She rooted for me, and she made sure that I came in prepared for games and everything. Even in high school and college, she called me and talked to me about who I'm playing, and she said that guy's gonna get you. He said, I don't know how tough you are. I said, Mom, I'm tough. Yeah. She said, well, I don't know. You're such a nice little boy. I said, Mom,
That's a
not
great
that."
story, isn't
It
it?
is.
Yeah.
I said, Mom, but I said, I'm really tough. And she says, you're all right.
Well, how'd you convince her you were tough, and what did she see on the
I
field?
still haven't convinced
Right.
her.
No, not yet.
Because she makes me bend down. She's only 5'6", so she can tap me on the cheek and said, just let you know who the boss is. So
Oh,
That is
mhm.
fantastic.
Yeah. So
That
you
really
come
is.
into school now, and you've had a growth spurt, and when do you start to develop?
Well, I started developing after late into my sophomore year, and I was in other sports, wrestling, track, and things of that nature. And I started developing in colleges. We were a very successful high school program, and we won state championships. We were one of the biggest schools in the state. So what had happened is that I started as a sophomore. I beat out a senior
At
to
what
start
position?
at outside linebacker.
Okay.
And I played both ways. I played
Oh.
offensive tackle on offense, and we ran a single wing.
Mhm.
So I played offense, the outside tackle, and then on defense I played outside linebacker. And I started developing in college, we had a lot of guys that were being recruited, heavily recruited by all the schools in the country, the Michigans, obviously the Alabamas and everything. So they'd come in and they'd see me, and I started getting letters in starting my junior year about that they were going to keep their eye on me, and they're interested in me and everything. And I had a really good sophomore and junior year, and I started getting more interest, obviously, going into my senior year, and those things had happened. So I was fortunate enough to meet some great coaches, and we even had, he was at the University of Maryland, and the coach there, and he came to our school, and we had a couple other guys that were highly recruited, and he came in his helicopter and landed it on our field. So it was pretty cool.
Oh my gosh, what an impression that must have made.
Yeah. It was interesting because, all I was thinking is, hey, they're going, because my dad said, the first thing he said, hey, I told him that I was looking at these colleges, and he said, well, he said, I can't afford you to send you those colleges. I said, it's free. He said, oh, pick the one you want. He said to pick the one you like. So,
so that's a great story.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Journey Through Sports and Life is the name of the program. We're going to be back with more. Jim Jeffcoat, former defensive end of the Dallas Cowboys, our special guest. Don't go away. Welcome back as we continue with Journey Through Sports and Life. And we're talking with Jim Jeffcoat, the former Dallas Cowboy defensive end. Margie, I tell you what, Marnie, you were up next. Did you want to continue? Or?
Well, no, it's really, truly amazing, the story. And I love how you can identify the real role models in your life, and that getting an education was so important. And then also, obviously, having an education and then combining that with your skill set on the field. So when you go to college, you're playing football. Then what?
Well, first of all, we were talking about Coach Cush, and there was a gentleman who was the offensive line coach there. They were recruiting me for defense. Most of the schools were recruiting me to play offense and play tight end. They were going to make me a tight end.
And then you go to Arizona State and you play for Frank Cush.
Yeah, I played for Coach Cush. And the way it was organized with Coach Cush, the freshmen didn't go up to Camp Tonazona, where we had our preseason training camp.
Which was famous for being very brutal.
And it was. It was very brutal. But the freshmen didn't go up there for the first 10 days. Camps were longer at that time. And when the freshmen got up there, the veterans or the upperclassmen were already a little worn out, because we had 3-a-days. We had a practice in the morning, you had a lunchtime practice, and then you had a practice in the evening. And if you made a mistake, you had to run what they called the Cush Mile. And the Cush Mile wasn't a mile, it was 1.6. So you had to be there and back before the next practice. So you didn't make a lot of mistakes. And then also I remember with Coach Cush, there was this campground up in the mountains that you couldn't even really walk up. You just pulled trees, and we'd have to go there. And if the freshmen, they didn't like the song you sang, they would push you down the mountain. That'd be hazing now, but back then it wasn't such things as hazing. They just push you down the mountain. So those things. So
Papago, or what mountain was that? Mountain?
No, it was Tonazona. It was up in Tonazona in Payson.
Wow.
So, but he would always tell you that he wasn't preparing you to play football. He was preparing you for life, because there are difficult times in life, and you have to be able to adjust to them.
As a college student, did you buy into that?
Well, at first I didn't, but when you went to Arizona State, you came in the summer and you worked a job, but you also went to school. And if you missed a class, you had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning with Coach Cush. Well, fortunately, my dad left for work at 4:30, and the only time I got to talk to him was at 4:30 in the morning. So I was used to that, but I did miss a class. And we would have to run the top of Sun Devil Stadium. Marjorie will know that is really steep.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd make you run until he got tired or until your class started. And So I'd run it. I could run all day. It didn't really bother me.
You weren't signing up for 740s? That way you could go to the first class?
No. So I'd run, and he said, I'm going to break you. I said, Coach. I said, you're not going to break me. I'll run all day.
Wow.
And he'd go, "Rrr."
This is still a part of your personality too, isn't
Yes,
it, today?
yes.
So
Yes.
what led you to ASU then? You probably have
Well,
a lot of offers.
it's
You know, a
a
guy from
funny
New Jersey
story.
and you end up all across country.
It's a funny story. I was recruited heavily out of New Jersey in my high school, and I went to Arizona State, and there was a blizzard in New Jersey. So they couldn't get me back. I spent about 4 or 5 days in
The land of the sunshine.
in the Valley of the Sun. It was 80 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
and all I could hear was my mother complaining about the weather back in New Jersey. I said, Mom, it's 80 degrees here. I'm at the pool. I said, this is where I want to go.
Yeah.
I said, this is good. Little did I know that it's also 119 in the summers.
Right.
Right.
Little did I know that. They didn't,
That's why the recruiting trips were like in the
Exactly.
prime, warm weather, but not too hot time of year.
Exactly. So it was a great time. I spent extra time there, and the rules were a little bit lax then, where people didn't check on you to make sure that you weren't communicating with the coaches. They wanted to make sure, and I had to stay a little bit longer. And I just loved it, to be honest with you. I loved it, and it was beautiful, and it's a lot different than what I grew up with. Everything seemed like it was new. Little did I know about the dust storms or some of the things that were related to that area.
But those were few and far between.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
You stayed here after your career with the Cowboys. Did you ever think of going back there?
To
Arizona?
Arizona, I've always thought about
That's
that.
what I wondered.
Eventually, I'll probably at some day go back.
Retirement comes.
Yeah. I have 2 brothers that live out there, and
Okay.
they love it and retire back to
Yeah, that's what I
Arizona.
wondered.
Yeah. And I've always liked it. I've always liked the area. It's a beautiful area.
it is beautiful.
But Dallas is home. My kids were born here and everything, and I spent so much time here. I've always loved the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Well, tell the audience, all our viewers and listeners and what have you, what you're doing now.
I am a partner in a insurance company. We do major medical, we do supplemental, we do commercial, we do residential, and we do financial. So I'm a partner in that, and I work on both sides, the commercial side and the medical side. So I go out and meet with people, or the majority of the time, because of the pandemic, I'm doing more Zoom meetings than in-person meetings. I very rarely go out as much as I used to, but I go there and organize it and see how we can help each other business to business be successful. And we've had really, really good luck in this environment.
So, Jim, when you were playing with on the team with the Cowboys, I was a beat writer. So we've known each other for many, many years.
Yes.
I always had a really strong sense of your work ethic. Tell us a little bit about the Breakfast Club. I always thought that was really interesting.
Well, myself, Herschel Walker, Todd Fowler called ourselves the Breakfast Club. And what we did, we trained at 5 o'clock in the morning. And Herschel was a track guy, so we do a lot of sprints and everything. He wasn't a lifter, so he didn't lift, but he'd come in, we do push-ups, sit-ups, and then I'd have to go lift. And Todd would lift too, Todd Fowler, but we do that every morning. We go out there in the off-season and train together, and I've still, me and Herschel are still very good friends, and we talk at least once or twice a month and everything, so we still talk, but we were. It was a fun thing to be involved with because Herschel was a tremendous athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard to believe that it was 40 years ago this year that he won the Heisman, huh?
Yeah, that is crazy. That is crazy that you see him, and you could see if you've been around Herschel. I got great Herschel Walker stories, and he did play for Philadelphia.
Yep.
But one of the most phenomenal athletes I've ever been.
Well, I remember one time in the locker room at Valley Ranch, I was just kind of tossing a football in the air, and so he wanted to play catch, and he got after me for not following all the way in.
Did he really?
Yeah,
So you got a little tutoring from.
Yes, I did.
What was the interesting thing about Herschel? People don't realize that he could do various things. He could go out and spread out and be a running back. He could catch the ball. He could do various things. And people don't realize how athletic he was. They thought he was just
remember
a
he was
great
on the
running back.
Olympic team.
Yeah,
in
That's right.
in the bobsled.
exactly.
And the Fort Worth
The
Ballet,
bobsled.
wasn't
and
it?
the Fort Worth
Exactly,
Ballet.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
right.
Yeah, and we
That's exactly right.
When I went for my black belt, I had to spar against him in the Grandmaster, and I sparred with them to get my black belt, and they got to switch off. I had to continue to spar.
Wow.
That's very interesting. I was with Herschel about 3-4 months ago. We were in Springfield, Missouri together doing a military event, and we were at a big convention center from the Bass Pro Shops underwrote, and spoke to all these military and veterans and what have you, and we were up on the stage together with a Medal of Honor recipient, and everything I asked Herschel, he was, it was kind of a Q&A. He was above and beyond. It was incredible.
Yeah.
What he shared about the military and what have you. So they were most impressed with who he was and what he stood for.
Yeah, and he does a great job.
Yeah.
He
What do you
does
think
a
about
great
him?
job.
He's running for office, huh?
Well, we don't talk about that.
Oh, okay.
We don't talk
don't
about
get down that
politics.
road.
Hirsch,
Okay.
I love you, but we're not going to talk about
Okay.
politics.
Okay. We won't either. This is a non-political
Yeah.
show.
I said,
Yeah,
hey,
exactly.
So
you
we'll-
know how I feel about you, and I wish you success.
Yeah.
But it's hard, it's difficult to talk about politics because everybody has different views.
Understandable.
So, Jim,
Understandable.
you're one of the few that played both for Landry and Jimmy Johnson, right?
Yes.
What
Yep.
was the difference?
The difference is where Coach Landry was interesting. Coach Landry, obviously, when we talk about the NFC East, he played for the Giants
Mm-hmm.
and he coached for the Giants. He was the defensive coordinator. Vince Lombardi was the offensive coordinator. But the thing about him was unique. He basically knew every position because he invented the flex defense. He invented the offense. And what he did is in practice, he would sit in the tower with that megaphone and he could see everything. It's the most amazing thing. It sounded like God going down booming and everything. And he could see every position. And on Mondays, when we had our film session, he critiqued every position. And Randy White, who's a Hall of Famer, the Drew Pearsons, the Tony Dorsett,
Right.
we all, and myself, we all dreaded when he would call your name because you knew you messed up. And that was the thing. And it was like you waited for the music when Tom Landry walked in, the aura of it. And he was just brilliant. I mean,
Right.
he was brilliant, how he coached and the things that he saw in a game. Back then, they didn't wear headphones. They saw it with their eyes, and that was the great thing. Where Jimmy was he was the master psychologist, and he was the master motivator. He understood everybody was different. He never treated them the same. He would tell you that, but that's not true. He had his guys, and in his guys, he knew they would run through walls for him. And he treated them different from guys that he knew wouldn't. And he would always tell you that. If you're one of my guys, this is like heaven. And he said, if you're not, he said, I'm just waiting for a reason to get rid of you.
Wow.
And that was it. And he was right. I mean, he had so much energy, and he put everything he had into it. Both of them did, Coach Landry and Coach Johnson. But they both were interesting, but that shows you there's different ways to have success.
They're very different.
Yeah, very true. I can give you a quick story. Troy Aikman, 1989 draft, the number one pick in the entire NFL draft. Jimmy Johnson takes over as head coach. But even though he's got the number one draft pick in the entire draft, All-American from UCLA,
Oh, I know
his
where you're
guy
going.
was Steve Walsh.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he brought Steve Walsh in because a couple of years
Supplemental
prior,
draft.
Yeah.
that's right. He didn't even get drafted
But he
in the
won a
April draft.
championship with
He's
It was a
won a college
supplemental.
draft, a college championship with him at the University
Yep.
of Miami. But he was picked up in the supplemental draft. And the one win that the Cowboys had in 1989, November,
Yes.
Sunday night, RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. And who was the quarterback? Steve Walsh.
Steve Walsh.
Yes,
I covered that
So,
game.
yeah,
I remember
yeah,
it well.
I was
Troy
there
was
myself.
injured.
Yes, he was
Troy
injured.
was
That's
injured,
true.
yes.
But still, and it was then in the off season, Troy worked on the relationship.
Yeah, and there was other things that
Yeah,
were
absolutely.
contributing to that with
Yeah.
Shula and everything,
Absolutely.
bringing Lori Turner in.
Oh, yeah.
That helped,
Yep.
obviously, Troy
No question.
mature and become a better player.
Well said, Jim.
Yes.
We've got to take a break. Journey Through Sports and Life, the name of the program. We're back right after this. Welcome back. Jim Jeffcoat, the great defensive end of the Dallas Cowboys back in the 80s, early 90s. Our special guest here on Journey Through Sports and Life. My name is Scott Murray, along with Marnie and Marjorie. Take it away. You've got the next question, my friend.
Well, Jim, you've just told us a little bit about playing for Tom Landry and for Jimmy Johnson. How about coaching? You went into coaching after your career, after you retired from Buffalo, and coached with the Cowboys for a while. I think you may have started with Chan Gailey.
Yes, I did.
Uh-huh.
It was kind of a funny story. Before I left for Buffalo, Jerry Jones said, this is when the salary cap came in. And he said, you're like a son to me. He said, whenever you finish, I want you to come back to the Cowboys.
Oh, great.
And I just took it with a grain of salt, to be honest with you. And after I played 15 years, and after my 15th year, I retired. I had a scope on my knee, and I said if I ever got a scope on my knee or any injuries to my knees, that I was going to retire. So a couple days after I retired, I get a call, and it was Jerry Jones. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, Mr. Jones, I'm retired." He says, "Well," he said, "I got a new coach." And he says, "Chan Gailey. I'd like you to come over and talk to him about coaching." I said, "Mr. Jones, I'm retired. I want to look at some other things. I want to maybe go into a business for myself and things of that nature." He said, "Just come over and talk to him." So I went over and talked to Coach Gailey, and Dave Campbell was there at the time. And I had known Campbell, obviously, from the Super Bowl years. Yeah. And we started talking. And he said, "Well, I have somebody that I'm interviewing you for the defensive line position, and I have somebody in mind." And he said, "And if that doesn't work out, I'll call you back." So a week later, Jerry Jones calls me again. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm still retired, Mr. Jones."
Still retired.
And he said, and he started laughing. He said, "Well, Coach Gailey wants to meet with you." And he said, "Well, it didn't work out with the other person that he was looking at for the position." And he said, "I'd like for you to come and see if you like coaching." So I did, and I got the opportunity to work with Coach Campbell, Dave, who I've known a long time, and Mike Zimmer, and Jim Bates, George Edwards, who's at the Cowboys now. And I worked with those guys, and it was a good experience. I stayed there for 7 years, and then the opportunity took a little time because that was one of my on my list is to own my own business. So I opened up an all-state insurance agency and took some time off of there. And I wanted to watch my children. They were getting to the age where they were getting to high school ages, and I wanted to watch them play. Yeah. And then it's just got that bug again, went and coached a little bit of college football in Houston, San Jose State, and Colorado. And then had that opportunity. So I was getting all those things off my list that I wanted to accomplish.
Well, then you went into some of those new pro leagues.
Yes, I did. I went into the AAF, did that as long as it lasted in XFL. I had the opportunity to work with Steve Spurrier, who was an amazing man, amazing. I mean, he was one of those guys. He was similar to Coach Landry in that he would never put headphones on. He called the game for what he saw. And I always thought that was a great trait to have in coaching. He saw things and he could adjust to them just by sight. Wow. And things in there. And then I had the opportunity in the XFL to work for Bob Stoops. And another tremendous man. He worked for Coach Spurrier too. And we all think that, Coach Spurrier walks on water. We'd spend nights talking about leadership and about how to develop players and everything. I mean, they're incredible. Both of them are incredible men.
Now, I have another question, but I don't need to go next, do I?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you, from your playing days, through seeing how your sons were coached, and then where we are today, how has it changed?
Well, here's the thing that's changed is that accountability, I think, has changed with the players today. Because when I was growing up, and my mother was a teacher. If I got in trouble in school, it was my fault. Now it's always the teacher's fault. Well, they're not treating my children right. But that's the name on the field is that a lot of kids think if they're not getting instant results, then it's the coach must not like me. The coach is wrong or anything. And the parents agree with this. They're saying, wait a minute, there's a process to this. And the process has changed. And that's the thing we got to get back to be accountable. You can't blame anybody for it. You have to look at yourself. Am I doing the correct things? Am I pushing myself the correct ways? It's just even there. You know, you can blame the referees. You can blame anything. And it's easy to do that. But did I do the right things? Am I in the wrong position? And these things. And that's the things that has changed. It's easy to blame someone else, but you have to be in business. I have to be accountable. I can't make excuses. Well, why didn't I get the sale? And say, well, it's his fault. He didn't like me. I had to give him something to like.
So playing off that accountability, Jim, that's a great point that you make. What are some of the things that you've shared with your children about what it takes to be the man that you certainly were, not just as a great football player, but as a great man?
Well, the biggest thing is that I talk to them about is that there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. It's how you react to them. You're going to have times in life where things don't go your way. Are you just going to say, well, it's everybody this and that and hold your head? Or are you going to find a way to fix these things, fix these things? And that's the thing I always talk to them about. It's not how you started, because I started with nothing. It's how you finish. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing I always talk to them. See how you finish. How can you make it better? How can you improve it? How can you become what you aspire to become?
Great answer. Good answer. Marnie, you got any thoughts?
I do. Well, I know that you're a leader both on and off the field. So we talked a little bit about philanthropy and how your parents really showed you that. So what are some of the things that excite you? Obviously, coaching, it seems like you're really great at mentoring young people. So philanthropically wise, what are you doing in the community?
Right now, I'm working with a company called MPH. And what they do is they work with orphanages in Latin America. And we're having actually a golf tournament March 30th here in Dallas-Fort Worth at the Cowboys Club. And we're going to have a golf tournament there, and I'm working with them. And what we do is we just want to make it aware, because some company, obviously in Mexico and in Latin America, El Salvador, these kids, we're trying to give them an opportunity. And we don't just start with them when they're young and leave them when they become adults. We help them get into colleges and help them move on in their life. And it's called MPH. And we're going to be doing it March 30th, and I'll be hosting it, and I'll be the chairman of it. Just recently, they did it virtual, the parade for the MLK. Mm-hmm. And I was the grand marshal of the parade, and I did a video for them before the parade and things of that nature, because you have to give something back to communities that I've been here for many years, and you want to give something back to the communities that you've been involved with and things that they've given you.
You've been recognized quite a bit over the years for the work that you've done for a lot of different organizations.
Nonprofits and what have you.
Yes, nonprofits.
All right, then let me ask you this. Playing off what Marjorie just said, and she's right, the nonprofits, the philanthropic world, those that need a helping hand because they find themselves in dire straits for whatever reason it might be. What about you? Legacy. Jim Jeffcoat, if I was to ask you what your legacy is, if you look back over the last, you're talking 1983, you joined the Cowboys, for Pete's sake. That's almost 40 years ago.
Well, my legacy is my children, because they're going to be here, obviously, longer than I am, but my legacy and what kind of adults they've become. Mm-hmm. And I think that I have 4, 2 girls, 2 boys. The middle ones are twins, boy and girl twins, but they are my legacy. And how, when people meet them, how they say, wow, that's some good kids. They've been raised properly.
What do you think it is that they're looking at? What are the attributes? You talked about accountability, which I thought was great, what you said. If I was to ask you, Jim, 3 things that you want to make sure your children, just
care for people.
Okay.
That's one. And be a good human being. That's another one. And always treat people with respect. And it's yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. If you've ever met my children, they always say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
I still, to this day, when I talk to my parents, yes, ma'am, no, sir. And I'm 60 years old.
Good for you, Jim.
And that's it. Teach it
No.
always when you're speaking to a person, especially if they're older than you, it's yes, sir, no, ma'am, and things of that nature.
So if you were coaching today, what would you say? And I don't want you to second guess anybody, after what the Cowboys went through, but just, in the playoffs. But what are some of the things any team in the NFL, not necessarily just the Cowboys, but any team in the NFL, what's the message that you would say to them before they go out on that field? And then, more importantly, what they do when they go out into the community?
The first thing is I would talk to them about is making sure you understand that either we are coaching it or we are allowing it. And I refuse to allow the mistakes because I don't coach those things. So we have to know, if you don't understand, I'm here. And we can spend all night to make sure that you understand what we're trying to accomplish. And the big thing I tell them is that, especially if you've ever been around pro football, which you have, everybody in here is that when you get in the playoffs, you only get one shot. If you lose, you go home. If you win, you get to play another day. And understand that, because this might be the last time you get this opportunity. From the 80s, you talked about the 80s, and it took me 10 years to get to a Super Bowl. And you think coming to the Dallas Cowboys, you're going to immediately be in Super Bowls, you're going to immediately have all this. But it took me 10 years. So I understood how important it was to cherish the moments. And you should cherish this moment because you may never come this way again. You never take this path again.
The words of Jim Jeffcoat, our special guest today, and we're delighted to have you along as well as we continue. And we'll be back with some final thoughts right after this on Journey Through Sports and Life. So don't go away. Welcome back. Our final segment now, Journey Through Sports and Life, and our special guest, the one, the only, Jim Jeffcoat. Number 77 on the field, but as you have heard over the course of the last hour, an incredible man that has continued to make a difference in the lives of those that need it most. So closing thoughts, ladies? What about it, Marnie?
Well, how about this? All right, you have talked about doing a podcast, and you have one, I think, so we'd love to know about that.
Yes, it's J&B Talking Shop. I do it with a gentleman named Byron Williams who played for the New York Giants, and obviously I played for the Cowboys, and we give our opinions on what's going on in the NFL. And it's on Roku, it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, and it's going really well. It's going really well, and it's great because everybody has opinions.
Right. All right. So what kind of so how would you say your opinions are? Did they get hot and
It's hot
heavy?
time. I'm going to tell you when and sometimes I don't mind you disagreeing with me. That's not
Right.
what I want is just to hear my opinions, but I want to hear yours. And we let the fans obviously interact with it and things like that. And then I've done some things which is called Millions, and I've done watch parties where fans come in and they ask me questions about the game and what I think about it and everything. And then I ask them questions, how they become, because I'm learning about fantasy football. And they're teaching
are
me.
you?
I don't understand it, but my daughter does. But I'm learning those things.
You're staying very close to the game.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's great. So if you're going to give an opinion, what do you think of the state of the Cowboys at this point?
The biggest thing is that obviously when you're a team that leads the league in penalties, you're not going to be very successful. There has never been a team that led the league in penalties that has won a Super Bowl. And that's just the reality of it. That's one thing that you have to correct. And you have to take it on you. This can't be always the coaches. It has to be the player that takes the responsibility of it. The positive for the Cowboys for this year is Dak Prescott will be healthy in going into the offseason. So he'll have a chance to obviously improve. And that's what every player has to do. Where did I go? The greatest story I ever heard when I first came to the Cowboys was about Roger Staubach. And what Roger did was after they lost a either Super Bowl or playoff game, the next day he was out there practicing, and he was preparing for the next season. And I, to this day, I always think about that. When first game I played in the playoffs was my rookie year, and I didn't even play. I was really just running down on special teams, and we lost the game. So the next day I was out there practicing and again preparing myself because I wanted to be successful.
He learned well. Well, I tell you what, you were outstanding. We've got to have you back again. I wish we had more time right now. But Jim Jeffcoat, thank you for being with us, but for all you continue to do in our world.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Much.
And on behalf of this dynamic duo over here and yours truly, we thank you as well. Till next time for Journey Through Sports and Life, thank you. Stay well.